Hello everyone. I've got a bit of a different video for you today in case the title didn't give that away. Today I want to show you my reaction and my thoughts to the gameplay trailer of Batman Arkham Shadow. If you saw my last video, you probably saw that I mentioned that I was going to start a VR series at some point in the near future. And surprise, this is that series. As soon as I saw that this game was coming out, I was excited. Now, some of that excitement was a little bit of nerves because I wasn't sure what to expect. However, after watching the Q&A videos with the developers as well as the gameplay trailer itself, I could not be more excited for this game. So, what I want to do today is watch the trailer with you, give you some of my initial thoughts, and then address some common problems that some people seem to have after the gameplay reveal. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so here we are. It's the Arkham Shadow gameplay trailer. I'm going to watch it with you. I'm going to pause it at some points. I'm going to talk about some of my thoughts on different parts of the trailer as I go into my whole little ramble about the future of what I think the game will be like. So right here, first off, we see, if I go back a few frames, you can see, we are damned back there, and they're wearing, it almost kind of looks like Court of Owls type thing, but it's for the Rat King. But what I want to talk about here is what looks like a VR gameplay mechanic to me, is you can see that the Bat Claw, which also acts as the grapple gun, comes out of the gauntlet right here, and he didn't necessarily have to grab it from like a tool belt. Now that's a good way to implement a VR mechanic there, but I think it worked pretty well from what I saw, and you can see how quickly he pulls him toward him. And then there's that little bit of time dilation that's really common in the Arkham games. You see it when combos start, when certain moves happen, when the end of a round and the challenges happens. So you see that you get that red burst from him hitting him. I don't know if that has anything to do specifically with a special kind of combo or a special kind of hit, or if that's just to make it look cool. But we get that, and then we get this flawless transition, or at least in my opinion, I think it's kind of flawless, of him grappling up to a different point. So one thing that I want to address right off the bat, and I'll go more in depth on it later, is some people have already started complaining about the graphics. They look at the gameplay and they think, wow, these graphics don't look good. Look at Arkham Knight. And I'll go more in depth on it later, but basically my first response is it's a standalone VR headset. And for a standalone VR headset, this looks amazing. And if you're trying to compare it to Arkham Knight, you kind of got to revisit it. But we'll keep going through the trailer. So he grapples up, and then we go to this Predator encounter. We've got the inverted takedown. I love doing inverted takedowns personally, and I've watched a couple other videos talking about this, but over here, you can actually see that it says Arkham Ward, and this kind of gives off the vibe of like the Botanical Gardens from Arkham Asylum. And one thing that I thought was actually particularly interesting about this inverted takedown is the fact that he punches the guy off of him before you see the rope. You see the rope down there, and you see a few other enemies spread out throughout the room over here. But I'm curious if in inverted takedowns in the actual game, if you can just let go of them the way Batman does, or if you have to punch them to get them off. I don't know. More of a view into stealth and what that kind of looks like. But we're about to hear good old Roger Craig Smith.
This rat cult spreads through Gotham like a plague. I have to stop it.
So here we get a bit of a look into one of our open areas. Now, in one of the Q&A videos that the developers did, they actually said that they were kind of going for a bit of an Arkham Asylum style game. And I just recently played through all of Arkham Asylum again in preparation for this gameplay trailer. And I see what they were talking about, where, when you exit a building in Arkham Asylum and you're on Arkham Island, there's that, kind of big open area with all the different buildings that you go into. And they said that's kind of what they were going for here.
If it consumes me.
And here, as people have talked about before, you actually do physically glide. And you can see down here, you can see that outline of Batman's shadow. They talked about how having the shadow of Batman fully rendered in at all times is something that they want to do. And so I think having this shadow whenever you glide is kind of interesting, so that as you glide down on some enemies, you'll actually be able to see your shadow kind of descending upon them, which probably freaks him out, which I think is super cool.
A corrupt system has failed you.
And here we get a look at the bat suit for this game. Now, one thing that they wanted to talk about in the Q&A is they wanted to try to bridge the gap between the kind of bulky armor that we saw in Arkham Origins versus the bat suit that we saw in Arkham Asylum. And I think for the most part, they did a pretty good job bridging that. Although in my personal opinion, I know particularly in the headpiece, it kind of feels like it's a little bit closer to Arkham Knight than I would have liked, but I still think it looks really good.
Are you not angry? Fight back! It's the freaking bat!
And there we have the iconic line, "It's the freaking bat." We got to see a glide kick in action in the game. And in that devlog, they talked about how you'd be able to actually see your legs come out and kick a goon. And we've got a couple others here. I'm guessing this is the health bar up at the top. And then we've got our combo meter up at the left there, and it starts combat. So here they show a bit of a dodge mechanic. You can see him dodge out of the way there. Now, one thing they talked about in the devlog that I don't think we saw in this trailer is he talked about, and this might kind of give it away a little bit, is he said that when there are certain counters, you could actually lift your hand up and you'd be able to counter it. So if we go back a few frames here, we see it pops up in his vision like they talked about. And I wonder if that little arm that's right there is supposed to indicate like move your arm up there. And it seems like you have the choice to either put your arm up and stop a counter or dodge out of the way. And then you get a punch icon. You can see he kind of jumps up in the air, sort of like you do when you attack a shield enemy in the other Arkham games. And he does a combo move here. He does that little explosion. It's kind of like the special combo Bat Swarm, but didn't look like it was bats. And then we see that little red mist kind of looking thing again as he fights. And he does a little bit of a combo. So one thing I'm interested to see is, other than that one combo where he kind of lifts him up into the air and then slams him into the ground, a lot of the combos look like it's a right, left, right, move on, right, left, right, move on. And I'm interested to see if there's different variations of combos or what we'll see throughout it.
Jim, this Rat King could be anywhere.
So as you can see there, you activate Detective Vision by bringing your hand up to your head and pressing a button as if Batman's activating it on his cowl. We see how Detective Vision is going to look in the environment. It's pretty similar to the other Arkham games where points of interest get highlighted. And then, if you got through the words of the Rat King, we find our way. So we're kind of getting that vibe of what to expect. And in the background, you can hear Troy Baker voicing Harvey Dent.
A face in the crowd, a foot soldier in his own fanatical mob. So how in the hell do we find him?
So one thing I've seen some people talk about is the idea that it'll be the type of VR game in-game cutscene that some games have, where you're in the room as the cutscene is happening and you can just kind of walk around and interact with people as the cutscene is happening. So I'm interested to see how that looks, because at the specific angle that we're at right now, I kind of doubt Batman is just like crouched down by the table or like leaning over super far. I think this is supposed to just kind of showcase the characters. But it'll be interesting to see what these environments look like actually in the game.
Targets are all city employees, civil servants, public officials.
So if I rewind real quick, you can see Bolton there, and we've got Tiger, they're back, and we've got a lockup boss fight that you'll see at the end of the trailer. So that was actually a villain that I just learned about very recently after watching some of the Arkham Shadow Q&As, and I'm really interested to see how this boss fight turns out, and just how this character turns out, knowing that we encounter Tiger again in Arkham City. It'll be really something incredibly interesting to see how because it almost looks like he kind of respects Batman a little bit. It's like he respects Batman, and he says you could have been a god, before their boss fight. So I'm intrigued to see how this whole thing with lockup turns out. And then the classic suit up sequence. Devs did talk about this again. They said you'll spend time as Batman and as Bruce Wayne. And I'm really intrigued to see how the suit up process works because they don't really show it in this game, but apparently it's going to happen multiple times.
You could have been more than a symbol. You could have been a god.
So they're kind of like what I was talking about again. It looks slightly different, but it was another right, left, right kind of combo. As you can see, there's that left hit. So this one was more of, I guess, a left, right, left. But it knocks the goon to the ground, and it's kind of different from the other Arkham games where it seemed like one hit knocked him over once you get a combo of 3 or more. And instead of showing specific circles of where to hit like it did in one of the first gameplay pictures, it actually shows these arrows. And you just kind of follow those arrows, you do your hits, and then you knock them over. And then he pulls out the batarang, special combo batarang, throws it at the other goon. It doesn't knock him over, but it does stun him, and then he grapples up out of the way.
Calm down. Someone's going to die.
Alfred.
So here we get a bit of a look at detective mode in a Predator encounter. We saw him grapple up to a gargoyle there, and he turns on detective mode. We get a view of the room. You can see the grates down there at the bottom. You can see the highlights of where other guns are. So I'm guessing you'll have some way of disrupting enemy guns because they've had that in almost every other Arkham game. And I'm intrigued to see how they do that because I know, like Arkham Knight, for example, you had the disruptor gun. You aim, you shoot at the specific thing. And with VR, since you're actually physically aiming, I'll be curious to see how that goes.
Alfred, we tried it your way. Now we do it mine.
So I was really happy to see this moment in this trailer because I was super excited to see how stealth was going to work. And you've got the classic stealth takedown, but a question that I have is, you can see that moment where it goes from grabbing him and then it kind of it snaps to his arms going over. So I don't know if the player has control over their arms when they do that, or if the player is just going to grab the goon, press a button, and then the arms move for you and it does a stealth takedown. But either way, as far as a VR game goes, that's still incredibly in-depth for how that goes.
Something big's going down tonight.
Good old Barbara Gordon there.
We repress our rage, our fears.
So here we get a little bit of a look at using the explosive gel in combat. It's the second time, or actually technically the third time we've seen a gadget used in combat in this gameplay trailer. I know one thing that's really helpful in the Arkham games as you try to get better at them is going from only doing combat to also adding your gadgets into combat some more. And here you can see, explosive gel, Hostiles 3, it did that in Arkham Knight. It also did that in Arkham City. I don't remember how it worked in Arkham Origins. That was the last one I played because I've been replaying all the Arkham games leading up to this one. And I actually started with Origins, then I played City, then Asylum, and then Knight again. I just kind of played it in a random order. But here you can see that it's got 3 hostiles popped up. And to use quick gadgets in combat, you'll have to actually grab them from different parts of your body and then use them. And I think it'll be a really fun learning curve to start using those in combat.
It feeds the shadow deep inside us.
You're everything that's wrong with Gotham! I'm done holding back!
So as you can see, shock gloves, we've got a lockup boss fight, and one line of dialogue there. It's something that's been kind of hinted at throughout the trailer, but he says, "I'm done holding back." Earlier in the Predator encounter, he said, "We've done things your way, now we're going to do them mine." Obviously, Batman doesn't kill in the Arkhamverse, so I'm really intrigued to see what exactly he means and what that means in the storyline. And in the story reveal trailer, Roger Craig Smith as Batman, he says, the Rat King is trying to destroy my city. How far am I willing to go to destroy him? And here he says, "I'm done holding back." So I wonder if there's going to be some sort of story element there, or if it's going to be some sort of internal struggle with Batman throughout the story. But I'm really intrigued to see how that goes. Get the good old title card.
I can bring the Rat King
So there's the Rat King, and I'm guessing this is supposed to be the Rat Catcher. That specific part of the Arkham lore I'm a little behind on. I haven't looked into it as in depth, but this is voiced by the guy who played King Ezekiel in The Walking Dead. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but I love that character. I love that actor. I love his voice, so I'm super excited to see him in the game. But I wonder if part of the storyline is going to be maybe using the Rat Catcher to stop the Rat King, maybe, because this guy is definitely obsessed with rats. It says something about rats down on his shirt there, and there's like a little drawing of possibly a rat or something over there on the right. So I am interested to see how this character kind of comes into play throughout the story. So here we are. We've seen the trailer, we've heard some of my initial reaction, and now I wanted to give you some of my thoughts. To start off, I do want to talk about my history with the Arkham series so you can see where I'm coming from. First, I remember playing Arkham Asylum as a kid and thinking it was the coolest thing ever. I also remember when I first bought Arkham City and Arkham Origins for my Xbox 360 and playing through those multiple times. After I got an Xbox One, I also played through Arkham Knight multiple times and got the vast majority of the achievements as well as the DLC. To this day, I have played through each Arkham game multiple times. I played through Asylum, probably we can just give a rough estimate of 4 times. City, probably 6 times, and Origins, maybe only about 2 or 3 times. Arkham Knight, however, was my favorite, and I played through that at least 10 times. As of right now, recording this, I'm actually working on another New Game Plus playthrough. And I just passed 200 hours on the PC version of Arkham Knight. It is far and away the one that I've played the most across multiple consoles, and I couldn't really give an accurate amount of time that I've played the others, but it's safe to say that I've played them a lot. On top of that, I also wanted to give some of my experience in VR. I bought a Quest 2 during my freshman year of college and used it all 4 years, buying a Quest 3 shortly after I graduated. I have spent hundreds of hours in VR across many different games, and at this point I think it's safe to say I have what we like to call my VR legs, as I usually pick the most immersive option that the game gives me, with games like Blade and Sorcery, Superhot, Resident Evil 4, Blood Trail, Assassin's Creed Nexus, and so on and so forth. To me, merging these two worlds is basically a dream come true. I've been a huge Batman fan for most of my life, and have always been fascinated by VR. I love the lore of the Arkham games. I love the stories of each of them. I love the iconic free-flow combat and how it's been used in other games outside of the Arkhamverse and how it really was a stepping stone for so many other games in the industry. I could talk about it for ages. So I wanted to take some time, as someone who's watched the developer Q&As, played all the Arkham games, and someone with a lot of VR experience, to talk about some of the common issues that I've seen pop up in the community after the trailer was released. First off, I've seen a lot of people saying that the game looks bad graphically. Now, if you compare it to Arkham Knight, then yes, you could say it looks bad. But keep in mind, this is in a standalone VR headset. The size of the headset is smaller than most modern graphics cards. So yes, the game will look a little bit downgraded. However, looking at it through the lens of VR, no pun intended, it looks stunning. After owning a Quest 2 and a Quest 3, playing standalone VR alongside PC VR, I can definitely say that for a standalone VR game, it looks incredible. A lot of the time, what things look like on a flat screen don't fully translate to what you get in the headset. It was the same thing when I played through Assassin's Creed Nexus. I saw some gameplay before playing it, and I thought it looked okay, but really not that great. Then when I bought it and I put on the headset, I thought it looked amazing. And it looked even better after I switched over to the Quest 3. So if you're worried about the graphics, maybe, in my opinion, you might be looking at it in the wrong way. If you're looking for Arkham Knight level graphics in a VR headset, we're not there yet for standalone VR. Next, why only in VR? This is something that a lot of people have talked about ever since the game was announced a few months ago, and it's something that I totally get. Not too many people have VR, as it's still kind of in its infancy. I know far fewer people who have VR as opposed to people who own a modern console or a gaming PC. But I agree with Camouflage when they say it's the same kind of thing as Iron Man VR, which is another game that they made. You can ask for a flat screen version of their game, but once you play it, you'll realize this is a VR game. The mechanics fit VR, the story fits VR, all of that. While it would have been cool to get a flat screen version of this game for the Arkham franchise, it does make sense to me that the game is only in VR. Because if they wanted to do a flat screen version, the development would take years, because they're basically starting from scratch and making a whole new game if they do a flat screen version. I guess I don't have too much else to say about it, and it just makes sense to me personally. Though I do feel for those who don't have a VR headset, and I'm sorry that you don't get a flat screen version. I really feel for you, and I'm being honest when I say that. Now this is a small one. I saw someone on a comment address it, and just in case someone else was wondering about it, someone said something along the lines of, why does the camera look so still in the gameplay? So I totally get it. It kind of looks like the vision is almost fixed in one place throughout some of it. And this is honestly more of an assumption than anything else, but I would think it's safe to assume that it was just for the sake of recording the trailer. When you record in VR, unless you have some kind of stabilizer, it's going to look really shaky. And if it looks too shaky, you may accidentally make some viewers feel motion sick just by watching it. Back in my streaming days, if I ever streamed a VR game, I know I had one person in my community who would not watch because just watching me play VR made her motion sick. And I'm guessing they just didn't want people to have to worry about that. So, like I said, that's just kind of an assumption, but that was my thoughts on that. How long is the game going to be? After watching the developer Q&As, and from my understanding, they want it to be about as long as Arkham Asylum. So depending on your pace as a player, depending on how much you look around, depending on how quickly you go through, predator encounters and combat encounters, and how quickly you solve puzzles, I feel like it'd be safe to assume it could be anywhere between 6 to 10 hours, depending on how you play. And for the people who are saying, I wanted a new Arkham game, not this, I've seen a few people say that, and I'm sorry if it's upsetting, but at the end of the day, it is an Arkham game. Watching these developer interviews and learning that each developer was required to play all of the main Arkham games so that they could learn the lore and respect it and the timeline actually made me feel a lot better. Because I know when I first saw the trailer, I was in the same boat of an Arkham game? Are you serious? Like, I don't know if I wanted this. And, when I first saw it was only on Quest 3, I was also hesitant. I was like, are you serious? Like, this isn't what an Arkham game is. But overall, I think as of right now, my mind has been changed, and I hope it stays changed by the time the game comes out. This is more of a question from me because I'm curious, but I wanted to know, what kind of accessibility is there? After playing Assassin's Creed Nexus and seeing the wide array of accessibility options that they offered, I was incredibly excited for the future. I was happy to see more options available to people who wanted to play a game like that, but may not be as comfortable in VR. So my hope is that while the game is complex, they would offer some kind of accessibility alongside it in the same way that the developers of Assassin's Creed Nexus did. My next question and my final question is, will there be a challenge mode? In all of the Arkham games, there's some form of challenge mode where you can do stealth and combat challenges and test your abilities. Those were some of my favorite parts of each game because it allowed me to get better without having to stay in the campaign world and find enemies to fight. To my knowledge, they haven't explicitly stated that the game will have this, and I'm fairly sure that it will. I just wouldn't mind if we had more of a definite answer, and maybe they have given a definitive answer and I just happen to miss it. So there we go. There's a breakdown of the trailer, as well as some of my thoughts as a longtime Arkham fan and a VR enthusiast. When the game comes out in October, I plan on recording the entire game and uploading it. While it's different from the rest of my content, I actually do plan on a no commentary Let's Play, so that people can watch the game and feel as immersed as I do without me talking. I want them to experience the game, and plus setting up a whole VR mic setup might be a little more pricey than I would like on top of buying the game. Other videos will be uploaded until then, but be ready for when the game comes out. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and feel free to talk about it down in the comments below if you want to share your thoughts. You are more than welcome to disagree with me, but I just ask, please make it civil. You're allowed to disagree with me, but you know what? I honestly just don't like it if people insult me, as I'm sure you don't like it if people insult you. So you can say, hey, you know what, man? I personally disagree with this, and I'd love to talk to you about it. Or just be like, you know what? I understand why you disagree. But if you're just being like, ah, you're stupid and wrong, well, then that's honestly just kind of a stupid comment to leave. So, but yeah, like I said, other videos will be uploaded until then, but be ready for October when this game comes out, and I will record it then. Thanks for watching, everyone. Peace.